Hi friends, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Courtney. I am a stay-at-home mom, wife, grandmother, and aspiring author. And welcome to Courting Whimsy, my little corner of the internet where I like to celebrate life in all of its messy, magical, small moments, especially now that I am in my midlife. So today we are going to get a little bit personal and probably way too much TMI. We are going to talk about something that affects half of the population, but it still seems like kind of a taboo topic for whatever reason. But we are going to normalize talking about perimenopause. If you have found yourself wondering what the hell is actually going on with my body, cop a squat, as we used to say back in the day, grab a beverage of your choice, and let's have a chat. Perimenopause is the transition period before we fully enter menopause. And there has been this idea that women at this stage in our life, that we're broken, that we're past our prime, that we're crazy, and we are none of those things. We are changing, and that is an excellent thing. One of the things that they don't tell you is how wild and vast the symptoms can be, and how often those symptoms get dismissed. Although I do think we are sort of in this period of women demanding that our health concerns be taken more seriously and not dismissed. I do think that there tends to be this dismissal of perimenopause as like the symptoms are not that discombobulating, or that they don't really impact our lives in a pretty significant way. And I know that I was thinking at some point that I just was like stressed out all the time, and that was just like how it was supposed to be. That I was becoming like hypersensitive, hypercritical, lazy, and spoiler alert, those are all symptoms of perimenopause. Not 100% positive, but I'm fairly certain that I was in my 30s when perimenopause happened. I got married again when I was 37, and my husband and I started trying to get pregnant like straight away. I was 37, he was 38. At the time that we got married, I believe my oldest child from my first marriage was 16 or 17. And then my youngest was probably 12 or 13-ish. And we tried for 3 years to get pregnant, and suddenly me, the person who got pregnant 4 times without even really thinking about it, could not get pregnant. Eventually I was diagnosed with secondary infertility, and we used fertility treatments to get pregnant with my youngest. He is now 11. Anything that I was going through at that point, I just kind of chalked it up to having a newborn, making the adjustment from, by the time he was born, my youngest was 17. So kind of making the adjustment from having teenagers and not really having to care for a newborn for the last 17 years to suddenly being in that phase of my life again. And I think even when you know what a lot of the symptoms are. Mood swings, sleepiness, kind of that like foggy brain, hot flashes. It can be really difficult to recognize those symptoms like when you're in the thick of it. 2018 and 2019 were really, really rough for me, and I can look back through my old journals and really see how much of a struggle it was. It's actually kind of painful to like flip through those journals because I just was all over the place. I was really angry all of the time. I was irritated with everything. I felt unloved, and more importantly, I felt unlovable just because of like the way that I was moving through the world. While I my PPD was gone by that point, it is very clear to me that I was kind of spiraling into this major depressive episode. At that time, we were also going to countless appointments and therapies and evaluations as we were trying to piece together a proper diagnosis for our youngest, who was struggling with a lot of different things at that point. And I just felt like I was being pulled in a million different directions. And I know sort of things were kind of at their boiling point in the spring of 2019. My husband and I were going on a trip to Vancouver. I was already nervous because I'm like a nervous flyer. And we had never been away from our son, who was struggling with a lot of different things. And so the fact that we were leaving him for, I think we were gone for 4 or 5 days, I can't remember, but the idea of leaving him felt like really overwhelming to me. And I wasn't feeling great about myself. I wasn't feeling great about leaving him. There were lots of things happening, and I know that like I was like trying to pack and figure out what I wanted to take and kind of what looked good. I was still kind of uncomfortable in my body. And I know that I was snapping pictures, trying to like put outfits together and kind of posting them in the group chat, so that, all of my girls could give me their opinions on things. And I remember like casually texting one of my friends and being like, yeah, I think we're on vacation. I'm just gonna ask Doug for a divorce. And she called me immediately and was like, girl, what the hell? What are you talking about? What's happening? So she like talked me down from the ledge and was like, don't do anything drastic while you're gone. Like, we'll talk when you get back. Just promise me you won't do anything. Because I can be kind of impulsive sometimes, but yeah, so we went to Vancouver. It was a lovely trip. We had a fantastic vacation. And then a couple weeks later, we met up for happy hour. And so we're like talking, and she's like, okay, like, what happened? Like, what have you decided? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, about like separating from your husband. I was like, when did I say that? And she's like, before you left. Like, I clearly was like in some sort of spiral, did not even really have any recollection of that conversation until we were discussing it later. But it was one of like my first indicators that like something was going on and I really needed to try to figure it out. So I did end up scheduling a physical with my doctor like that fall, I think. And then because I have suffered from depression probably since I was a kid, but I didn't start taking medication for it until I was like in my mid 20s. And I also have like an anxiety disorder, and so those medications had been managed by my family doctor primarily because I knew that like we were trying to get pregnant, and then once I got pregnant, we just sort of kept everything there. But I thought like, okay, like there's something going on with my mental health. Maybe I want to get a psychiatrist to help me kind of figure out the like my combinations of medication, because what I was doing then clearly was not working. So I scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist as well. But so I go in to have my physical, and she's like giving me the exam. She ordered blood work, all of that stuff. And during the appointment, she said like, oh, you're probably in perimenopause, because she was talking, the doctor that I had at the time was really very good about like taking her time with patients and really trying to get the full picture of what was going on with them. Actually, the doctor that I have now is really good at that as well. But and so, needless to say, once I got my blood work back, I definitely was in perimenopause. So that gave me a little bit of like, I don't want to say reassurance, but I do feel like, sorry, our dog is going nuts because my husband just left. But I'm the kind of person where the more information I have, the better my anxiety is, at least for most things. And then I met with my psychiatrist, and we kind of talked about the medications that I had been on, and kind of what else was going on and what I might want to try. So we went ahead and made some changes to my medication, which was working. And while I was in that appointment, she really encouraged me to get into talk therapy, which I hadn't had a therapist for probably 6 or 7 years at that point. So I had been in therapy off and on before, so it wasn't like an out there concept for me. So I said, okay, like I can see how that might be helpful right now. So I went ahead and searched for a new therapist, got some recommendations for some people, and found someone that I thought that I wanted to kind of date. You know how it is when you get a new therapist, you have to kind of see if you fit. So anyway, that was towards the end of the year, and so obviously, trying to get an appointment with the doctor at the end of the year is madness. Trying to get an appointment as a new patient at the end of the year is like next to impossible. So I scheduled my appointment. I remember her telling me like she was going out of town for the holidays, and kind of I took the first available appointment that she had, which was on January 13th, 2020. And I will never forget that day because it was on a Monday. And my mom died on Friday, January 10th, 2020. And because I was not really sure how to like get in touch with her to cancel the appointment, or I'm sure I was like in some sort of shock. I don't really know remember much about that day, except I just decided to go because I didn't know what else to do. So yeah, I walked into her office and she said hello, like nice to meet you, and pleasantries, and I sat down and she said, how are things? And I said, well, my mom died on Friday. And she was like, oh my gosh. So needless to say, we started out with 2 appointments a week, which was really working and kind of helping me at least try to, like, we hadn't even started talking about the reasons that I thought that I needed to be in therapy in the first place, because it was immediately like grief and trauma. But I was starting to feel better, and then March of 2020 happened, and we all know what happened in March of 2020. So the pandemic happened and the world shut down, and yeah, so I was struggling with all of these things. There was, all of these really intense mood swings. There was grief, there was fear, there was anxiety, there was depression. Um, and I don't know if you know this, things can show up in your body in the same way. So I became like that Spider-Man meme, like, is it depression? Is it menopause? Is it anxiety? What's happening? So yeah, and then that's without even going into the whole trying to do virtual school with a kindergartner who also has special needs, and also trying to help, my 5-year-old navigate losing his grandmother, and then all of his own fears and anxieties about the panic. Then there were, my older kids who were all living on their own, and that was terrifying to me. Our oldest daughter was in the Navy at the time, which is a whole nother set of parental anxieties. Then we had like that whole summer of 2020 with the BLM protests, and that, like, I was just feeling all of those fears intensely. I can remember having a panic attack at like 3 o'clock in the morning, but it was one of the nights that my husband was actually managing to sleep, and I didn't want to wake him up. And I remember just sitting on our porch at like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to like talk myself through it. Unsuccessfully, I ended up having to wake him up, but yeah, it was a lot. I felt like I was trying to do everything for everyone. And then at the time, like, we had lost my mother, but my dad was 90, I think, at the time. So kind of worrying about him, especially like getting sick, and it was just a lot. And so I had all of these different things that I was managing and trying to hold it together for everyone, and I was feeling like I was failing at all of those things. So for me, perimenopause really heightened all of the things that I struggle with. So my anxiety, my depression, my panic, all of those things increased exponentially, which also made me feel very, very out of control. And I'm a Virgo, so that's not really a thing that I deal with very well either. And then, like, all of that was sort of happening in my head, and that doesn't even begin to address the physical symptoms of perimenopause. I was waking up every morning drenched in sweat, no matter what kind of cotton, bamboo, whatever. Just, they were so, I mean, it looked like I took a shower in a shirt some mornings when I would wake up. That's just how much I was sweating during the night. It just became really uncomfortable. I was hot all the time. You just feel like you are, like, your insides are heating up. I cannot really describe it very well, but if you've had a hot flash, you know. I also really understand why women cut their hair in their 40s, and it's not because long hair is too youthful or suddenly unflattering. It's because that shit is hot and you just want it off your freaking head. So my deodorant stopped working. That was fun. Like, and all of a sudden I was smelling like a 17-year-old boy's gym locker. My skin was dry. Not only was it dry, it was itchy in really weird places. Behind my knees itched all the time. The top of my feet itched, which is really weird. Like, my nipples were very itchy. It was just, I was so uncomfortable and itchy and like smelly and sweaty all the time. My joints hurt. My lower back started hurting. I gained the COVID-15, and then I gained the Perimenopause 20. That wasn't helping anything. I really just felt like a stranger in my own body. And it was, you know, like the movie Freaky Friday, when like Jamie Curtis, or not Jamie Curtis, yeah, Jamie Curtis. Well, when they swap bodies and they like look in the mirror and they're like, oh my God, like who is, that's how it was. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I just didn't feel like myself in every way possible. Then there are like the weird things that you don't really know are perimenopause related, like the nonstop like ringing in my ear. I discovered that was a perimenopause symptom. The constant itching in my ear that made me want to like dig the inside of my ear out with a sharp tool, also perimenopause related. My allergies got worse. I developed new allergies. Everything made me bloat. I could try to eat healthy, bloat. Junk food, bloat. Tea, bloat. Coffee, bloat. It was just, it was terrible. Everything was terrible. Then there's like the sudden dip in your sex drive, which I think is like a fairly common symptom. Mine dipped for a while and then it like shot up. So then that was whoa. So then, yeah, I went from not wanting my husband to breathe on me to pretty much jumping his bones anytime I could, which I guess this is the TMI portion of this video, but yeah, so that happened, and things were like fine in that way until they weren't. I got 2 UTIs for the first time in like a decade, which is really weird. Also a perimenopause symptom. And then sex like practically overnight became very, very, very painful. Like, not just like uncomfortable, but actually painful. And that was worrying, and just things felt a little off, you know what I'm saying? So I went ahead and made an appointment with my gynecologist, and like, to be honest, I was not sure what was going on. My husband and I have been together for 22 years. It has never crossed my mind in 2 decades together that he was unfaithful or had been unfaithful or whatever. That's just, I don't know. I just don't think, I mean, of course men will surprise you, but I just don't think that he's that kind of guy. But as soon as I got into my doctor's office, I'm like, I need you to test me for everything because something is happening and it's not good. So she's like, yeah, no, like, that's fine, no problem. So we're like casually chatting, as you do when your legs are up in stirrups, and she's like doing the exam or whatever, and she's like, like, I don't have a problem, like, we will go ahead and run all the tests for you, but I think you might have vaginal atrophy. I'm sorry, what? Because I know from watching House and ER that like atrophy means something's like dying or dead, right? So my brain immediately is like, what's my vagina is dying? That's something that can happen now. That's what we're doing. And while it's not that dramatic, because like science gives women the most like fear-inducing labels for anything that happens to our body, essentially what it means is that it's very, very, very dry, which is why it is so painful. There are various things that you can do to help that situation. There is like medication, there's topical things, there's things. So if that is one of your symptoms, go ahead, get yourself tested for everything just to be on the safe side, which everything came back normal. And then, you know, chat with your doctors about what you can use or what they recommend for you using for that. But that is not something that I was prepared to have to deal with. And I remember because I was out with my girlfriends like last summer, and I was like, hey, did you know that like your vagina can die? Like, I did not think that was a thing. In addition to body odor, you can have like a heightened sense of smell. So now one of your body's superpowers is to make sure that you know how bad you actually smell all the time, which is great. I loved having to buy 10 deodorants to try to find one that would actually start working again. And I remember one of my girlfriends calling me because she was using like, I don't know if it was like natural deodorant or like aluminum free. I was like, yeah, girl, you need the good stuff right now. Like, I know what you're trying to do and I love that for you. But like, it's time to break out like the real deal. So yeah, itchy skin, BO, wonky sex drive, dead vagina, all of these things are happening. It's a wonder that we don't really want to talk about them. And I know that it can be embarrassing and all of that stuff, but none of us are going through this alone. So you really should not be embarrassed to ask a girlfriend, ask your doctor, talk to your partner, significant other, husband about it. I know, especially now that things are kind of like calming down a little bit, I just remember telling my husband how much I appreciated him, because not only were we sort of locked in the house for 2 years because of COVID, but during those 2 years, I was like heavy, like those symptoms were like heavy duty. And so it is a miracle that we both came out on the other side, at least of the COVID restrictions, like fully sane and still together. Because of everything that was happening, I did not really have the space to figure out. A lot of the things that were going on with me were directly correlated to being in perimenopause. Um, Grief and the state of the world just took up all of that space. But it was happening. It was happening while I was grieving my mother, while I was trying to be the best mother to everyone else. I was really doing my best to hold it together while life felt like it was falling apart. And I was not very kind to myself during those really hard years. I tend to be harder on myself than I would be on anyone else. And so if you are sort of in the thick of it right now, I encourage you to give yourself some grace. Be the friend to yourself that you wish, or that you are being to other people. Extend that friendship to yourself as well. Um, and if you feel like you're a mess, that's okay. That's okay too. Um, and that, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna come out on the other side. I know that you have to go 12 consecutive months without a period to be in menopause. um, I have come right up to that line, I think twice. Seriously, I've gone, I think one time I was like 11 months and 1 week and my period showed up. Like, hey girl, remember me? Fantastic. So hopefully I will be on the other side of that. Knock on wood. But yeah, that is sort of my experience and the journey that I am currently going through. I hope that you found a little bit of humor, maybe something useful. At least you know that, we're all going there. And if you got anything from this video, enjoyed it in any way, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, hit the subscribe button down below. And I would love to know in the comments, did it hit you in unexpected ways? Are you sort of waiting for perimenopause to kind of tiptoe in, so you're just kind of gathering information about what you should be looking out for? If you are fully on the other side, get in the comments and give us some virtual high fives and you're doing great, sweeties. But yeah, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.